Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. I'm your host, Leon Gordon, and thank you, like I say, for joining us for tonight's webinar, which is going to be 6 repetitive activities you can automate using Power BI, and it's going to be delivered to us by our Microsoft Power BI UK user group top contributor, Fernan Espejo. So without going into too much detail about the session, I'll give a brief introduction of Fernan. But before I do that, please be aware that I will be opening the Q&A functionality for today's session. This will allow you to ask any questions throughout, and we will also have some time at the end of the session to go through and ask any further questions as well. So Fernan is a Power BI advocate and enthusiast, and he has over 5 years of experience in data analytics. He's worked within large organizations to implement business intelligence solutions that revolve around storytelling through data and automations. And as I mentioned, I'm very keen, Fernan, to hear more about the 6 repetitive activities that we can automate in Power BI this evening. So without any further ado, I'll pass you over to Fernan. Enjoy your session.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Leon, for the opportunity that you've given me today. As I said before we started, I'm both humbled that you invited me in this, seeing just how many people are interested in, seeing what kind of things you can automate in Power BI is, is quite exciting, but at the same time, it's quite terrifying, just because it's probably one of the biggest webinar sessions I've ever hosted. So thanks, first of all, for giving me the opportunity. So welcome, everyone, and thanks for allowing me to be here today. The webinar, as I said, covers the 6 tasks that you can automate with Power BI. These 6 tasks are essentially not necessarily everything that you can automate in Power BI, but they're more like avenues of what you can automate in terms of repetitive tasks that you might experience. So the activities, it will be type of activities that you will experience or that I've experienced across different organizations where I've used Power BI to either save time or money for the business. I also chose 6 tasks because it encapsulates really well what Power BI is used for, which is not just a visualization or charting tool, but it's something that you can use as part of the sort of reports development process. Right, not just the front end. So Leon's already given me a brief intro, but I'm just going to add on top of that. So I am a Power BI enthusiast. I'm based here in the UK. For my day job, I work as a data scientist for Capgemini UK. I'm part of a small but growing team called the Command Center, which focuses on HR, insights, and analytics. And in my spare time, I'm both a director and a content creator for my company, Solutions Abroad, where I create videos every week teaching people the ins and outs of Power BI. So if you're interested in more about what I do and the YouTube channel, I've posted the QR code, which will link you to my YouTube channel. Right, so moving swiftly to the common misconceptions about Power BI is that, as I said earlier, it's a big misconception to think that Power BI is just a way to make pretty charts or interactive graphs. But what not a lot of people know is that that's only the front end, right? So there are lots of systems in place for that interactive report to work. Maybe you could have systems integrated directly in Power BI, or that the Power BI is being used to clean the data, and so on and so on. So each of the tasks that I'm going to cover today are some of the most common workplace scenarios, just to show you how to automate them using Power BI. And if you need to ask questions or need to know more, you can ask the questions during the sessions or at the very end, as Leon said. Or what I've done is on each of the tasks, I've created a QR code that you can scan, which will give you some more in-depth view or knowledge onto how to implement these solutions yourselves. So the first task that you might face that we can automate is automating data extraction. So here I've created a simple diagram just to show you just the example of a common thing that you might encounter. So Sam is a data analyst that needs to deliver his reports daily. So the data that he needs is coming from an online system. And every day what he does is he logs into the system, downloads the files into an Excel extract, saves it into his local machine, and then that's what he uses to build his reports for his users. Every day, this process takes about 30 minutes, which is not exactly a long time, but it comes with a couple of problems. First is that because it's a daily process, it means it takes up Sam's time daily. And over time, as you notice, because it's a daily process, this results in days and days of time that could be spent wisely. Secondly, is that this process is a dependency on Sam. So let's say Sam goes off sick, or let's say he goes on holiday. Not having Sam in the process means that it could cause delays to this process, or it can even be missed. So using Power BI, you can create or automate the data extraction. So because Power BI is able to connect to a multitude of different data sources, you can create a link between the source where the data is actually coming from to your report, set it up once, and with a click of a button or a daily schedule, you can get your data refreshed with a click of a button. If you're, we're going to cover the schedule refresh at a later section. So here I want to show you an example, first of all. So here we have a site, financialmodelingprep.com, which gives us, let's say, stock prices for any financial instruments that exist. And from here, you can get some information about the assets themselves, so the current price and the historical price. And if you, let's say, wanted to build a report out of this, what you would normally do is try to download the data or the historical data that you want, get it into your local file Excel, and then use that as your source for your report. However, because of Power BI, with Power BI, you can create a direct connection from your reports to this site. So you won't need to do any manual extraction, and that integration between the source and your report is seamless. So here I've created a report. It's a very simple report that pulls data using APIs from that site into our Power BI report. So as I said, this is not pulling from Excel, it's pulling directly from the site using APIs. And to get the latest price for GME, all you have to do is click the refresh button, and what it will do is it will get you the latest number from that site without having to do anything else but just clicking one button. So before we move on, basically what it does is it removes the manual work from Sam, in that he doesn't need to spend 30 minutes every day, and it could be done in a single click of a button or scheduled as you need. The second scenario that you could automate is data cleaning using Power BI. So let's say Jane here, she's responsible for creating monthly reports for her executives. And monthly, she gets this data. And every time she gets this data, she has to clean this data for reporting. Either maybe she has to remove columns from it, maybe create some columns with new calculations, maybe clean empty or incorrect values. Now, there are issues with this process. So first of all, it's a very repetitive task. So every month she has to do the same tasks, albeit on a different type of data, which can result in human error. Second thing is that any changes to the process can be difficult to apply if you have to apply it back to the previous month. So let's say instead of removing certain columns, she needs to include some new columns, and it needs to be cascaded back into the previous months. With the current solution, it means that she has to go and apply that on the current month and also on the previous months individually, one by one. Now with Power BI, you can create a series of steps to transform your data. You just set it up once, and then when you refresh your report, your steps gets applied to your data in your reports automatically. So here I have an example report which gives us some sales over time. The sales table is pretty simple, but what I want to show you is what's hidden underneath in the Power Query. So here, this is another system within Power BI that allows you to clean your data using using Power Query essentially. So I want you to pay attention on the right-hand side, which are the applied steps. And these applied steps are essentially a series of steps to transform your data. You set them up once, and the idea is when you refresh your report, it gets automatically applied to your data. So the steps are in chronological order, starting from the very top, and it gives you a good view of the number of transformation steps that are being applied to your data before it comes into your report. To look at the steps and how the data changes during these steps, you just need to go through them. So let's say you want to see how the data change from the current type that it is now to the different types that it is in your report. Maybe you do some steps where you replace, values that are errors into zeros, or maybe you filter empty values. So what's good with this is that the applied steps create a sort of way for you to create these processes without having to learn how to code, how to do mQuery, which makes it easy to maintain and manage, even for someone who doesn't know a lot about Power BI. Another thing is that it's fairly easy to reuse just because you've set it up once now. As long as your data or your source stays the same, it can be reused to different types of data. So let's say you have data for the previous month, you can reuse these same steps without having to redo any of the work. Another thing that it does is it creates better traceability for the steps that you apply in your data. So it means if you have any errors or issues within your steps, you're kind of able to identify any problematic steps and apply that change across all the other months that you have, making it easier to manage. And if you follow the QR code that I have in this PowerPoint slide, it will link you to a video where we go through in detail, some of the ways that you can clean your data and transform them from raw data into something that you can use in your Power BI reports. The third scenario that I want to look at is automating insights. Actually, before I continue, are there any questions in the meantime that I can answer?
There aren't just as of yet, Fernan, but I think that the point you've touched on there in terms of data cleaning and the transformations that happen, from my perspective, and I'll ask you if it's the same for you as well. A lot of users coming from an Excel background or very much CSV based analytics and reporting, the efficiencies that could be had here just by moving those data transformations into Power BI, automating that process and loading the data source in is absolutely huge. Just on that note as well, some of our users have said that the screen is slightly small. So if you could go to full screen if possible, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. No worries.
No problem at all. But have you seen the same in terms of users coming from Excel, performing a lot of cleansing within the Excel workbooks?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. So some of the most recent ones that I've encountered is actually converting macros, Excel macros, into Power BI steps, and it's quite common. And I've seen it quite a lot where macros are applied in Excels to do the same transformations that we do in Power BI. But the problem is that these macros are pretty old and can sometimes struggle when it comes to larger sets of data. And running or even just clicking these macros to run can take hours depending on how big the Excel files are. So that's why I listed this cleaning, because a lot of the work that I do is sort of porting that data cleaning, that transforming from their systems, let's say in Excel, either they do it manually or through macros, into Power BI.
Exactly, which is a huge return on investment straight out of the bat, because if you think of all of the person hours saved, from, like you say, from cleaning data to automate that, it's countless hours. So I totally agree.
Yeah, exactly. We've had this so many times where macros would just outright stop working, and because there are no macro experts, the people that have done them have left already the company. It means that they're stuck in a solution that doesn't work, and that requires someone who is an expert in the field to kind of look at these codes to say, okay, this is what it does. Whereas with as we saw in Power Query, the transformation steps are quite linear. It can be as explanatory as you can to make it easy for anyone else who might be coming on board to inherit these reports.
Exactly, and we have just had one question come in from a user called F, and they ask if they have some Excel reports that are, say, for example, from Oracle, but they aren't structured in a clean CSV format. Thus, they will have some merged cells. Is there a way to automate this at all using Power Query?
Yeah, for sure. So if I got that question right, you're asking if you have some Excel reports that are coming from Oracle, but are not in a standard format. You have merged cells that you need to split. If you can automate that in Power BI, is that what the question is?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so yes. So some of the steps that I have shown here on the slide is not there's more steps here than there's a lot more steps available for you to use if you have some if you have a delimiter character within that merged cell that you can split your characters by. You can totally do that in Power Query or Index quite easily. So let's see if I can try to do that here just to show you an example, right? So if you look at, let me just put this a little bit bigger. So if you look at product name here, we have some names separated by the dash here in the middle. If you wanted to split these into two, let's say, you can right click here. You have an option to split by delimiter. It will just add the step on the right hand side here, which is normal. We're just putting it as a step here because this is a transformation step that we want to do. So here we say we want to split this column into two. using this this line here as a delimiter. If you hit OK, you'll see that from before it was one column, sort of merged column, but now we've separated them into two. And you see quite easily we've added that step here seamlessly. So all of our, let's say, steps are still there. And we just added basically one step in this transformation process. I hope that answered the question.
Fantastic. Thank you. It did, Fernan.
Fantastic. Lovely. So I will move on to the next thing that you can automate with Power BI, which is automating your insights. So as an analyst, your job goes beyond data collection. So as an analyst, your job could be looking for things like anomalies in the data, looking for correlations, or even writing narratives for the analysis that you make. Now, not all analysis can be automated because obviously that still has a human factor behind it, but some of the basic analysis can be. Some of the analysis made by humans can have its own potential issues as well. Not that it's bad, but it can be prone to factors such as human error, or could be biased to the data. And depending on the skills of the analysts, getting these insights can take time. So Power BI provides a wide range of AI-assisted visuals that helps make basic analysis quicker for you. So some of them include things like anomaly detection, or looking for key influencers in your data, or even writing things like narratives can be done seamlessly in Power BI. The QR code on the top right will take you to a video which goes through how you can use key influencers to look for reasons or possible explanations as to why your data increases, or a certain data point in your data set increases or decreases. So I want to show you an example just to show you how it looks like. So I'm just going to go back here. So here in this report here, we have one line chart that shows the sales over time across the month of November. And we want to do some basic analysis to find out if there are any anomalies in our data. Now, we can do this basic analysis ourselves, or we can leave it up to the visual itself. So to do that, we're going to click on the line charts. And under the analytics pane here, you can find this option called Find Anomalies. If you click that and hit Add, it will add a range within your line chart to show the normal range and highlights any points that are outside of that range just to show the anomalies. You have some options to increase or decrease the sensitivity, or even add some more data for this AI-assisted visual. So it will allow you to get some more explanations or some basic analysis as to why you have these anomalies. If we click, we can see that here it's been highlighted that this is an anomaly. If we click on that, you'll see that it gives you a bit of a summary as to what is the anomaly. It's unexpectedly high. How high is it compared to the expected range? And as I said, if you add any data in this explained by section here, you can even get some possible explanations as to why we got this anomaly in the first place. So the fourth scenario that I want to talk about is automating refresh. So let's say Anna here is one of our business analysts, and she's configured a report that has integrated from the source She's doing all the transformations in her reports, and now she's published these reports into the service. Now, every day, all she has to do is click the refresh button from this report in order to refresh the data in it. But did you know that you can configure reports to refresh on schedule? So actually, Anna doesn't have to do this, and it's not dependent on Anna clicking the button. So let me show you another report here. So here we have a report that I have published in the Power BI service. So it's published online. And it's a headcount analytics report that just gives some information about the headcount health for a company. And this is connected to a data source itself. So you're able to just click the refresh button to refresh this data. If you go here and select see related content, you'll see the data sets that is connected with this report. And as Anna's job, she is able to refresh the data on demand using this button, refresh now. However, there's a button right next to it called the scheduled refresh. So click that. It will take you to a section of the data set where it will let you configure your different settings, but the most important one is the scheduled refresh. So as long as your data sources are correctly set up, so we're getting this data from a SharePoint folder, you're able to enable this scheduled refresh. And let's say if Anna needs to refresh this report every day at around 8 a.m., you're able to enable this setting, which will allow you to add a refresh frequency, how often you want your data to refresh by itself. So I'm going to use the UK time because I am in the UK. And let's say we want this report to refresh at 8 a.m. every day. You can add as many as you want. I believe for the Pro license or free, you can add up to 8 times per day, but somebody might correct me on that. You can have daily refreshes, weeklies for the scheduled refresh. If you're scared of your refreshes or monitoring if your refreshes have successfully happened or not, you can create refresh failure notifications to basically email you or notify you if you have any, if your scheduled refresh runs successfully or not. And to do that, you have these options down here to say if there is a refresh failure somehow, maybe there's a problem with the data source, or maybe there is a timeout error, I want to be notified. Or you can add other contacts as well if you wish. So again, this removes the dependency from Anna to free up Anna's time to do other things, do other ad hoc analysis that that actually requires attention as opposed to doing any repetitive tasks. So that's the fourth scenario, automating a report refresh. I think I'm going to take a quick brief pause here just to check if there are any questions in the meantime.
No, not so far. No questions as of yet.
Fantastic. Okay, then in that case, I will move on to my fifth scenario, which is automating sharing. So here we have a scenario. We have Patrick. Patrick is in charge of delivering dashboards to certain executives in his firm. And these executives don't really want or need the interactive elements of the Power BI. And they only want a static copy of it sent to them via email on a daily basis. So every day what Patrick does is he opens the reports. He exports this report into an image file, either PDF, image, He attaches it into an email and then he sends it to these executives every day. So the same problem as the other tasks. Obviously, there's a dependency on Patrick in the sense that Patrick has to do this every single time he needs to give an update to the executives, even though it's a task that is repetitive and could be automated. In Power BI, you can create something called the subscriptions, which automatically converts your report pages into images, PDF, or PowerPoint, and it automatically sends these emails to other users. So I want to show you an example of how the subscription looks like on this service. So we go back to the report that we have here, the Headcount Analytics report. You'll see on the top ribbon here under subscribe, if you click that, this will allow you to create these automated emails that get sent out on a regular basis. So you'll see here on the right-hand panel, we've already got one called the daily summary, but you can add many more. And in this one, we have just configured this as a subscription to send a summary to myself. You can configure other options or other properties on it, such as the subjects, headers, which report you want to include in this email, the frequency of it, and when. You can even add things like access to this report, link to the report in Power BI, or preview image. And this this solution solves the problem that we have, which is relying on Patrick to do this activity of exporting this this report into an email, then sending it to the client. So instead of being the provider for these executives, the reports actually do it themselves. So so Power BI handles the conversion of the image, attaching it to the email, and then sending it to the executives. And finally, my sixth and final scenario is actually automating data alerts. So here we have an example, Diego. He's a sales manager that has multiple reports that he needs to monitor daily. These reports are from different departments in his organization, and each of them have their different sales and sales goals. Every day, what he does is he opens these reports. And by the way, the reports are, let's say, refreshing or getting updated frequently. And his job on a daily basis is go to these reports, review them individually to check if any of the sale targets have been reached. And if he finds them, he then constructs an email to the client and then alerts them. Now, I've seen this quite a lot, and it can be a problem depending on the volume of reports and insights that you need to get and how frequent you want it. For example, in here in this scenario, if you have a lot of departments, having to check these individually one by one can take time. But in Power BI, you can create something, data alerts for your dashboard tiles, which allows you to add thresholds based on certain values. And when these thresholds are reached, you can set the alerts to be sent out either as a notification in Power BI or via email, so that you are notified as soon as the data changes. So instead of being the provider for these data alerts coming from Diego, instead Diego becomes also another customer for these alerts. So instead of having to being the one to alert the clients and Diego gets alerted as soon as this data is this alert is triggered. I want to show you how to set it up quite easily in the Power BI service here. So here I have just on the top left-hand side, I've just pinned a tile from our headcount analytics. It's just a percentage of turnover. And for you to create alerts for your reports, you need to put them in tiles first. You can't do it from the Power BI reports directly. And to do or create a data alerts or a rule for it, you can go to the tile, click more options, and click on manage alerts. So again, like the subscription, you're able to create other alerts if you want. And here we've already created one that says if the turnover, this percentage value reaches 2%, I want you to notify me. And it's currently active. So you can see here, you can add the alerts, and the alerts will show up down here in the notifications. So the alerts are set. You set the conditions, how often the notification should happen, and the emails, if you want the notifications to be sent via email as well. It's quite basic, and it doesn't allow you to send emails directly to your clients from here, but using Power Automate, you can extend this functionality even further by linking it with some flows that will allow you to send emails from alerts automatically. And that's really it. So those were the 6 tasks that you can automate with Power BI. The 6 tasks that I've outlined touched on just different parts of the report development process. So from getting your data from your sources to cleaning it, to even getting these insights automated or sharing these to different users. A key thing to note is that Power BI is not just a tool to visualize your data information. It's more of an end-to-end solution. And I hope that with this session, you now have at least learned some of the ways that you can automate and improve different processes within your organization. So yeah, hopefully it gave you a taste of some of the capabilities that Power BI can do.
Fernan, thank you very much for an absolutely informative and well put together session. What I'm going to do now is open up the Q&A for any further questions. And whilst we wait for some of those questions to come in, I just wanted to thank you because having won the accolade of being a top contributor for the Microsoft Power BI UK user group, you've then obviously come on board and delivered like you mentioned, a session which is at a larger scale. So you've done an absolutely amazing job, and we've learned some great bits of ways of getting rid of some of those repetitive tasks, shall we say. So I'm sure the audience will echo my sentiments there. So absolutely fantastic job.
Thank you, Leon. Really, I honestly really appreciate the opportunity. I wasn't quite sure, if the content was too basic or anything like that. It's really interesting for me, especially working in this field for a couple of years now, to see that, although we take for granted that everyone that uses Power BI knows the breadth of the things that it can do, but it's not until recently that I found out that you can do data alerts in Power BI. So certainly there are lots of different aspects in Power BI that the team keeps adding on every month. That I think it really kind of adds on top of what I said earlier, is that it's more of an end-to-end solution that that can add a lot of value to businesses.
Oh, definitely. I totally agree. And that, as I mentioned quite a lot during our webinars, we have very varying skill sets within our Power BI UK user group. So within our content, we cater for the advanced, the intermediates, and the beginners as well. So this session was very well put together. We do have a question which I believe you've touched on slightly already, but it comes from Jason H, and he's asked if you can go back to the report subscription in the tenant. Does it include the full report option, or is it grayed out? And are there limitations around who can be added as a subscriber? And do the report subscribers need to be in the same tenant or have a Power BI license?
Okay, I can answer some of that. So first of all, so there is an option, as you notice, the full report attachment as, but I believe that is tied to the to your license. That's a recent addition that they've added a couple of months back. I haven't really tried it, but all I know is that it attaches the full reports instead of, let's say, because we have in this, let's say in this report, we have multiple pages. At the moment, what we've done is we choose the reports that you add into the subscription. But with this with this option, you're able to attach the full report combined together into one. So it says actually here, it says it requires a Power BI premium. So that answers that question. Second of all, there is a limitation on who can be the recipients for these subscriptions. Currently, let's say in your tenants, you're only allowed to send natively subscriptions, emails to anyone within your organization. So, so let's say at the moment we are in the Tenant Solutions Abroad UK. Anyone who is within or has an email within this tenant can be added here in your recipients. But that doesn't mean that you are limited to that. So I've covered it already in a separate video. Maybe I'll try to find it and link it here in the chat. But there is a way that you can extend this and send emails to other people outside of your organization using Power Automate. So Power Automate is something that we use to extend a lot of the kind of functionalities that we wish we had it here. So I'll try to find that the link to that video, and I'll paste it in the chat for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for clarifying that for us, Fernan. And just a wider question. Outside of the 6 tips that you've given us today, what, if you could, which might not be possible now, what task, if you could automate in Power BI, would you want to?
So that's a very interesting question. And you know what? Like, I'm really excited of all the insights that the Power BI team has been adding in terms of the AI assisted visuals is what I mean. So a lot of, I think point 3 or point 4 touch a little bit on automating insights, and you know, it sounds quite scary because it could replace analysts in the future. But for me, it really excites me, just because it removes a lot of the bulk of my work as an analyst, in a sense that a lot of the basic analysis will be done, and then I can focus on something or a lot more interesting stuff, right? So the most interesting one that I actually wanted, and I'm not sure, maybe the Power BI team has a secret microphone in my computer somewhere, is the insights. I just saw it yesterday and I thought, wow, that is really cool. So if anyone doesn't know about this yet, it's sort of like the one that we showed today, which is, you know, getting things like anomalies or finding key influencers in your data, but instead it's doing it throughout your whole reports. I mean, it gives summaries, things like top insights, finding things like trends, correlations. And for me, this was something that I was looking for, something more holistic rather than specified to a visual, but it seems like they've already added it. So yeah.
Excellent answer. And so I can see that some of our audience as well is very excited about insights. And with that being the case, I know that you work, you mentioned Capgemini as a data scientist. So is that on a consultancy basis?
Yeah. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that being the case, obviously you probably see a breadth of customers and different engagements. What would you say in terms of repetitive tasks what do you go in and try to eliminate first?
So the first thing that I try to eliminate is the data extraction. So the step one, it sounds quite basic, but a lot of the clients that I meet, so we do HR analytics, and a lot of them are based on HR systems. We know, or at least I know, that you can create direct integrations from your reports to, let's say, your different systems. However, not a lot of, let's say, our what I see quite a lot is the antiquated view of, okay, I need this report, so I'll create a report in that system and I'll export it as Excel. And it creates a lot of problems that I didn't quite cover fully in this session, because I know we just have an hour. Pertaining to do with data security, data integrity, governance, things like this. So the first thing that I try to do is to make sure that that solution where you absorb that data from your sources are quite tight. So I automate that extraction as quick as I can, and automate the refreshes. So get the insights as quickly as possible, because I think that's what drives the appetite for the reports. Once they see that you get that value straight away, they can see that you have this system that works, and that it works by itself. Immediately, the value skyrockets for you. So this, I would say, is the first thing that I look for when I look at architectures and solutions with our clients.
Fantastic answer. And as you mentioned earlier, we're obviously all aware that Power BI and the Microsoft product team put out monthly updates, which is obviously very, very frequent, and obviously big updates as well as part of the roadmap. Now, as somebody who creates a lot of content online on a YouTube channel, and as I say, contributing to user groups, one question that I'm sure the community would love to know is, how do you do it? How do you keep up?
Lots of coffee. Lots of coffee. So, I mean, it's been a hell of a ride, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I love data and tinkering with technology, even on my spare time. So since I started a year ago, it takes a lot of the majority of my free time, even the weekends, doing and creating these contents. And it really helps that the Power BI team, are quite their cadence when it comes to releasing new features, interesting things to try out. It's quite quick. So I always find something interesting to cover, and it's also a chance for me to discover new things, because we are all lifetime learners. I am still learning in this process of learning, so although I may look like I am an expert in Power BI, I feel like every day I am still learning new things. So I would say it's perseverance and curiosity and lots of coffee.
a plus one for coffee. And with that being said, obviously, again, within our community, we probably have a lot of members that are similar to yourself, are lifetime learners, do put out some content, but may not have made the leap to actually doing a webinar, and demonstrating how they use technology. So would you have any advice to give on to those users?
I would say take the leap. It's tough, coming from a background where public speaking is not my forte. I keep in touch with Chris Wagner from Rockwell Automation, and I see some of his posts, leadership posts, and we read some books that are similar, and the insights of motivation and things that what motivates you isn't waiting, it's by doing, right? So as you know, this is one of my first webinars. The first one was not only a couple of months ago. and it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. But what's really helped me is just knowing the fact that after this, I will have more experience and I'll be more comfortable, which I think will help me grow in the future, and I think will help me in the long run, instead of of just constantly avoiding it. So I would say try it once at least, a couple of times, and I guess that's it. It's just take the leap, right? Because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Exactly. And big shout out to Chris Wagner as well, and obviously to Rockwell Automation as well. And we do have a general question that's come in from F, and they say, do you know if Power BI data extraction would work with Oracle? And this is particularly from a finance / accounting system. And the second question is, have you found any way to use extra fonts within Power BI?
Extra fonts. Okay, so I answered the first question first. So Oracle is something that we're working towards. I know that there are Oracle drivers that allows you to connect your Power BI reports directly into Oracle systems. I know that it's there, but I haven't tested it for sure. So I would say it's a maybe. The second question, custom fonts. The only way that I've done it so far is by using backgrounds. So backgrounds is a great way to save some allow you to customize your reports without having to put extra strain in your visuals by adding more let's say visual elements in your reports. And you can do other things like new shapes, different kinds of shapes, and you can do it from PowerPoint, export it as a background. And actually I've actually covered this as well in another video, so I will post a link just to show you how easy it is to, like, let's say, add custom fonts in your reports.
Okay, no problem at all. And I will just elaborate on that slightly. So there are hacks to add custom fonts to your Power BI reports, but you have to go into the underlying JSON and do some editing with some of the JSON scripts to enable this. I do believe that there's a community idea thread open on the Microsoft community, so it might be worthwhile looking there and upvoting that idea, because I think you're not alone there, F, in terms of other people wanting to have custom fonts within Power BI. So and obviously Microsoft are very open in terms of listening to the ideas from the community. So we will keep our fingers crossed for the future. But very well answered there, Fernan. And you've had some fantastic feedback as well. A lot of people have said they couldn't tell it was your first webinar. You've done an absolutely amazing job. And some people obviously in there saying that they're excited about some of the Power BI automations as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for the kind compliments, guys.
No problem at all. So, I mean, from our perspective, there aren't any more underlying questions in the Q&A. So, once again, Fernan, I'd really like to thank you, not only for delivering a fantastic webinar, and I wish you the best and onwards and upwards in future webinars, but also for continuing to contribute fantastic content to the Microsoft Power BI UK user group, and obviously out there to the wider audience on YouTube, LinkedIn, etc.
Fantastic. It's been a real pleasure to be here, Leon. Thank you very much for the opportunity once again. And thanks for those who stuck around. I hope it was useful to you at some point. If you want to stay in touch, you can use it through my LinkedIn or through my YouTube channel. Also, the slides does have a QR code that you can scan. It will take you directly to my YouTube channel.
Fantastic. And those links are within the chat, and they will be on the YouTube recorded version of this webinar following this session as well. So as always, I'd like to thank our sponsors, which are Onyx Data. So again, be sure to go and follow and support Onyx Data as well for allowing us to put these sessions on for you on a weekly cadence. And obviously, I'd like to thank yourselves as well, the attendees and the community, because as always, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you've been here with us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. Thanks again. Stay safe.